Hi guys, this is Mark Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also known as Mark Zicree of Space Command, and I'm here to tell you about one of my favorite subjects, which is Elaine Zicree, who I've been with for over 40 years now. She's not only my wife, but she's also my writing, directing, producing partner. Sometimes we trade off on those jobs, so I might be a producer on one project like Voiceless Roar, where she's the writer-director. Other times she might be aiding me, but I wanted to give you an overview of how her life has been one long journey of compassion, empathy, humanity, bringing people together, serving our world, politically, artistically, and in her personal life. So first of all, you need to know that Elaine grew up in a very, very, very political household. As she went to high school and then college, it was a time of great turmoil, from the assassination of JFK, through the civil rights movement, through Vietnam War, and Elaine was advising people who didn't want to fight in the Vietnam War how to get to Canada. She was walking in the civil rights movement, working with Martin Luther King's people, and growing up, the books and plays that she was seeing really had a huge impact on her, and she realized that you could use art as a way of sending a great message of humanity and commonality to others. She had read Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and saw that it didn't matter what culture you were from, it didn't matter what the specifics of your life were, that you could engage other people by the heart, and they could see that we were all the same, that we were all human beings, and we could reach out to them and we could feel less alone. And this has been Elaine's purpose and her guiding star for her entire life. So in high school, she discovered acting. And she was the hotshot actress even in high school, to one point where they wanted to send her on this multi-city high school acting competition that was going to be held at Hollywood High. And she said, well, why should I do that? Why do you want me? And they said, you're our only hope of winning anything. And so she went 2 years and she won both times. And from very early on, people saw that she had an amazing ability to communicate the human experience, particularly suffering people who needed to band together to fight the forces that would crush them. So she then went to college, Cal State Northridge Drama School, and again, she was the hotshot. As an actor, you had not arrived unless you had been directed by Elaine. She was just wowing everyone, acting the lead in plays, she was directing, while still being very politically active. So then Elaine moved to New York to be an actress and a director. And again, things were going astonishingly well. Producers were taking notice of her. Directors were taking notice of her. She was directing her own off-Broadway productions to rave reviews. And yet, if a production was not casting black actors because they were touring the South, she would report them and she would turn down roles that she had won in these productions. She was highly principled, highly aware of injustice. And when her hero Martin Luther King was assassinated, she was part of a traveling acting troupe that put on the life of Martin Luther King at the Poor People's March in Washington, where the city was filled with protesters. The army moved in. It was very dramatic, and Elaine was starting to get very, very angry, and she had to leave the country for a year and a half to cool down. This is at the end of the 60s. After that, she lived in Israel for a year, working on various kibbutzim, befriending both Jewish people and Arabs and Druzi, and just again, uniting people, having everyone feel warmed by her presence and her expression of who she was, her authentic expression. And one thing that people will tell you about Elaine is that she's the same to everyone. She never makes any judgment of hierarchy. And then she went to Greece for 6 months and lived on an island and was teaching the kids and teaching herself Greek, to the point that when some American tourists came, they thought she was Greek because she was just chatting up the older Greek ladies. And so she comes back to America, and she's decided she doesn't want to be an actress anymore. It's not the life she wants, but she very much wants to write and direct and produce. But she realizes she needs more experience in the world, because she'd grown up reading Steinbeck and all these amazing writers, Dickens, and she wanted to express real life, not the convenient lies that media often tells us, film and TV, the stories that really don't bring in everyone, don't knit us together. So she gets a 54 Chevy, two-tone Bel Air Chevy, blue and white, and she starts driving across the U.S. And wherever it broke down, she would get a job to earn the money to repair the car. So she worked as a waitress and a maid and a crop picker. And it was the adventure of a lifetime. And she remembers traveling at one point with her friend Marion, and they were sleeping in their car, and they wake up and there's a family. And the kid says, "Look, Ma, hippies." Though Elaine was hardly a hippie, but she was living the bohemian life. She was living the Steinbeck kind of adventure. She wanted to experience real life like they have in books, she says. So she traveled all over the U.S. and took in these stories and took in these towns and really gained a sense of the variety and the commonality of life. So she got back to LA, and she knew she wanted to be a writer, but at the same time, she was taking jobs that specifically would be of great help to the most powerless people. So she worked as an English teacher for underprivileged youth and worked in a Head Start kind of program for little kids, and she worked teaching self-defense to seniors and running a singing group for seniors that traveled around entertaining at various places. And she worked at a seniors' home, working with them to be more and more functional. She worked with autistic kids performing and singing and giving them instruments so they can perform and not be ostracized. And finally, she ended up as the director of a federal program for seniors and the handicapped, and she worked that job for 5 years. Her entire team were senior citizens helping install life-saving equipment in people's homes so they wouldn't be institutionalized. I mean, she was deeply, deeply committed. Everywhere she goes, she's like magical. So she met me when I was in college, after she had had these amazing adventures. She was really like a character out of a book. She had such a depth of spirit. If you meet her now, she's the same person she was when I met her. She's like a stake pounded into the earth, just unmovable. She's wonderful. She's who she is. She has been that way since I've known her. And we've been together over 40 years. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. So we get married and we begin our life together. And she has faith in me on The Twilight Zone Companion, which is this book I write right out of college. And she and I start working together in film and TV while she's also writing her own projects, putting on plays that she's written, directing them. In the meantime, I rose as a writer, producer in television, and often when I got stuck or when something wasn't working, I would bring Elaine in to write with me. So we started getting co-credits on things like The Lazarus Man, which was this wonderful Western series that I was a producer on, and Liberty's Kids, which was a great show about the American Revolution on PBS, and we were nominated for the Humanitas Prize for that, very, very prestigious award. And we wrote a pilot called Magic Time that was optioned 8 times. All the machines in the world stop running and magic comes back. And I ultimately sold that as a trilogy of novels to HarperCollins. Now Elaine and I are going to do that show now that we have our own studio. We have 3 sound stages. We've got cameras, we've got equipment, we've got an entire team, we've got a full-time editor, full-time line producer. I mean, I often say that the thing that Elaine and I stand for is compassion. You find where people are suffering, where people are needing connection, and you provide that. And so 30 years ago, Elaine and I created something called The Table, which is writers, directors, actors, producers, anybody in film, TV, or books. There's no charge. It's a phenomenal resource, but more than that, people are not alone. Hollywood can be very corrosive. And Elaine and I agreed that we would be the counterweight, because if you actually take an action, you can have a great effect. And that's what we've done over the last 30 years, every single Thursday. And many people's lives have been hugely changed for the better. In the meantime, Elaine was writing novels and plays and songs. Yes, she's a songwriter too. I love her songs. And I did a Star Trek episode with George Takei, and Elaine co-directed it with me, working with George, working with Grace Lee Whitney and Christina Moses. It was nominated for the Hugo and the Nebula Awards, the top awards in science fiction. It won the TV Guide Award. This is Elaine's doing, getting to the heart of these characters, getting the moments that we needed of performance. Additionally, she directed a film about Bonnie and Clyde that made the rounds of film festivals, was very, very, very applauded and acclaimed and accomplished. And in fact, there's a photo of us holding 2 clapboards, because we had just finished doing the Star Trek episode, and Elaine was directing Bonnie and Clyde. I'm very proud of that photo. And at the same time, Elaine got hired to write a screenplay about the life of Lord Peter Hayne and his family. They were very, very active anti-apartheid crusaders, and now he's in the House of Lords. So Elaine and I are attached as producers, and we went around South Africa and Wales and England interviewing all of the witnesses. And it was a remarkable, once-in-a-lifetime experience, and just a phenomenal project. We are multitaskers, and we love multitasking, and we love being active, and we love being effective. And every day is like Christmas for both of us, because we come from joy, we come from commitment, and we both have a terrific work ethic. Elaine talks about being OCD, but in reality, it's just, you just don't stop. You just keep going, because it's where your heart lives, and you can't fake that. But meantime, Elaine and I started doing Space Command, this big science fiction project that we're writing and producing and directing. It's on a huge scale. And of course, science fiction is where my head lives. And Elaine brings the heart, brings the humanity. But Voiceless Roar was always Elaine's major project, the one she really wanted to get done. And now that we have a studio, now that we've been raising money, now that we've been getting Space Command done and all these other projects, it's time. It's time to have this dream come true. It's an incredible cast, incredibly talented ensemble, and this is a movie I'm dying to see. And if you read the script, as so many have, you'd be dying to see it too. It's got great writing. Elaine is an extremely accomplished writer, producer, director. She's an actor's director, which is the jackpot. It's a director who not only says, stand there and don't get out of the light. An actor's director understands the heart of the character and can speak to each actor so they can get to the emotional truth of the role. It's phenomenal. And it isn't a question of if this movie will get made, Voiceless Roar. It's only how we're going to pull the funds together to make it. That's where you come in. It's up to us and it's up to you to make this happen. You know, films can either keep us apart or they can bring us together. I think of film and TV as an empathy machine where you can see someone else's life and at first they seem very different from you, but by the end of the story you realize they're just the same as you. And that's remarkable. It diffuses fear. It connects us. Very, very important in these times of polarization and separation. I recommend that you really look at this very closely and take out your wallets and make it happen, because you will be very glad you did. You will be part of something that makes the world better. And how often can you say that? It'll be seen by millions of people around the world, and there will be people in crisis where they will feel disempowered, they will feel like giving up, and they will see this film and they will say, I am not alone. I can take charge. I can bring together a team. I can make things happen. I can let people know that the world is a place worth living in. You know, one thing I found out is there's so many terrible things in this world. There's violence everywhere you turn and atrocity and all of that. But compassion and kindness and empathy have a ripple effect. And if you do something that has a positive good to it, it spreads to hundreds, then thousands, then millions of people around the world. I've had this happen many times in my life, as has Elaine, and Voiceless Roar will continue this amazing tradition that we have been committed to for many, many years, and every day is a joy, a blessing, and the greatest blessing for me is having Elaine in my life, and I'm so glad now that you will get to have her in yours.